coach saw me shoot the 3-pointer, he took me out of the game. But Gabe keeps shooting. He has a lot of confidence. He's averaging 24 points a game in his last 3 games, and he's shooting over 50% from 3-point range. He's figuring out ways to score besides relying on his jump shot. As I talked about, getting to the free throw line has been big for him, Marcus Carr, and his entire team. And then defensively, they've also been impressive. I think during the 3-game winning streak, they're holding opponents to 38% shooting. And that's also including Ohio State and Oklahoma State. So if they can sustain, the level of play that they have, getting in the free throw line, defending, and then getting some big games, it doesn't have to be every game, but they get a big game from, either Marcus or Gabe, and then consistency from Daniel Turu. I think they have a shot to make some waves in the Big Ten. Not maybe compete for a title. I know that's not what Gopher fans want to hear. You want to hear them competing for a title. But the way this season started, Ryan, to say this team has a chance to finish with a winning record in the Big Ten, I think that they've come a long way in the last couple of weeks.
Let's be honest. At Gopher Illustrated message board, when they were struggling early in the year, the old thread popped up. It popped up. Who could be the next coach? And all that talk of who could be the next coach has been replaced by NCAA tournament potential talk. How fun to watch this team is type of conversation. And to touch on what you said, when it comes to Gabe Kalsher, he came to college basketball as a mature player, but you're still seeing even more maturity come from him. And I got 2 points on that. One, he's struggling from the perimeter, so he's been going to the basket, finding different ways, moving off ball, using the dribble, getting to the foul line a bit more. But if you recall, he didn't even shoot a free throw for the first 4 games or something like that.
Right, and that 10 game, he did not go to the free throw line.
Yeah, so now he's getting to the free throw line. Now, and once you get confident and you make your little wonderable pull-up, you make your free throws, that helps. And that's what happened last night. After some early perimeter jumper struggles, he goes near the basket, scores. Now he's hitting 3 threes in a short span of time, and he hits 5 for the game. But the other thing, the Gophers have played 12 regular season opponents and they had the 1 exhibition. And then they also had the scrimmage. Okay, so that's 14 opponents. Of those 14 opponents, I've been able to talk to four members of the other staffs, of staffs that they played against. And all 4 of those times when they talked about the Gophers, they mentioned how hard it is to get anything going to the player that Gabe Kalsher is guarding. How hard it is because they can't make the initial wing entry pass where they want to because Gabe is taking it away from a good player. How they try to set a screen or a ball screen and Gabe is fighting over the top of it, taking away space, taking away, a passing angle. It's just, that's what level of defender he is. And when you do that,
I think Gabe, arguably team MVP right now. I mean, you talk about as consistent and as great as Daniel Turu has been lately. Gabe Kalsher's resurgence has been just as important as Daniel Turu's consistency.
I might argue against that, though. Daniel Turu has been a beast. Everyone was so concerned about rebounding for this Gopher team. Daniel's out here grabbing. His average has to be about 11.5 now, and Minnesota has.
Yeah, I just think that,
and they've won the board battle 10 times.
I just think that I'm not trying to downplay anything about Daniel at all, because I think he's a tremendous player, and obviously he's putting himself in the conversation for Big Ten Player of the Year. But he was playing at a high level even in their losses, and they still lost. So I think that there was a missing piece there, and I think Marcus Carr brought it obviously in versus Ohio State, and I think in the last couple of games it's definitely been Gabe. And they need the 3 of those. That's their big 3. Peyton Willis. It's unfortunate that he has this ankle injury. I don't know if he's going to be ready for Purdue. I think that he's going to give it a shot in Big Ten play. But I think that they've shown that they can beat some very good teams without him. They've gotten some good contribution from Michael Hurd and Trey Williams, and even Alihan Demir is helping them rebound a little bit more and giving them more scoring. And obviously Gabe has improved his scoring as well. But let's talk about the Gopher women's basketball team a little bit. They beat Penn State. They now have 11 straight wins after losing their opening game. And winning on the road in the Big Ten, whether it's men or women's, is not an easy thing to do. And they went into State College. They pulled off a 7-point win. Sarah Scalia is a freshman from Stillwater. She had 22 points. Destiny Pitts also had a 20 piece. And, I think that she and Scalia, give this team the 1-2 punch, that they had a couple seasons ago when they made the NCAA tournament, when they had Carly Wagner, and obviously Destiny was on that team as well. But Kanisha Bell was also a big time factor in that backcourt. So I'm looking for this team, right now, 11 straight wins. They have a shot, just like the Gopher men. Actually, they're in better position to make the NCAA tournament for the first time under Lindsay Whalen. But I think the true test for them, as I think it is for the men, and they did it versus Ohio State, is you got to protect the home court. I think, a few years ago, made it hard for the women's team to make the NCAA tournament when they lost a couple home games that they should not have. So I think if they can keep winning at home and maybe get some really good wins at home, I think you'll see Lindsay making the NCAA tournament for the first time. But even it's a long way to go, but they're off to a great start.
And they're 11-1. And the biggest thing with what they're doing right now is balance. This team it's a balanced basketball team. Teams have to defend so many different pieces, and obviously with Destiny Pitts hitting 45% of her threes. And if you put her at the foul line, she's knocking things down. But that's the case with the whole team. I mean, everybody on that team is shooting a solid percentage. Everybody on that team gets to the foul line, knocks things down. It's a balanced basketball team, and it's hard to defend every piece of Lindsay Whalen's squad right now.
And if you just look at the team, the way that they responded after last year's disappointment, they started off being ranked in the top 15 after a great start, and then they struggled in Big Ten play. So I think to get this win to start off the season in Big Ten play on the road, it just kind of shows that this team is matured from last year. They're still young in some areas, but I do think that they have enough leadership in their upperclassmen, to make a run for this. And, it's exciting to see. I think the Barn last night, when they did play Florida International, the attendance was actually more than when they played Ohio State. Of course, the Ohio State game was on a Sunday, and, obviously it was tough for people to come out and see that Vikings game. But, the weather wasn't great the other night. And fans came out to see them play their last non-conference game versus FIU on the men's side. So I think both the women and the men have a good home court advantage. If they can win some games, they'll have a shot at the postseason. I want to flip back to football here and get your prediction. I obviously both know that we want the Gophers to win. But obviously it's going to be tough versus Auburn, a team that beat Alabama and could very well be in the playoff if they had some things go their way. So what do you think, how do you think the football team will do?
The heart says, the heart wants to say there's a Gopher win. That's what the heart says. But unfortunately, when it comes to Gopher football, even on some of these better seasons they've had, the big games have not been something they've traditionally pulled in. Penn State, yes, that was a big game, and they pulled that in. But then I also think back to the Iowa game and the Wisconsin game this year. And I also think back to the Missouri game at the Florida Citrus Bowl. And also during that season, there was, chances to play in the Big Ten, the Big Ten championship. That 2014 season didn't happen. This year they had a chance. It didn't happen. So until I see the Gopher football team can, at least win half of these really big games at the elite level against, top 20 level teams, it's hard to predict that they're going to win. You need more than just the Penn State win to say that you're going to, that you can be confident in the fact that they're going to go beat a defense like they're going to face. I think the game is close, and I think it's going to be winnable for Minnesota. But right now, I'm saying it's going to be about a 29-24 Auburn victory, just because the Auburn offense has done enough and their defense is a monster. And like, one more thing about the Auburn defense, everybody talks about how guys, they're going to go pro. What's the point of playing? But then Derek Brown stood up and told everybody why he wants to play. And his words were, my teammates elected me captain in the fall, and I'm not going to shy away from my duties. I know the risk at the end of the day, and that's what everybody wants to claim, but this is my last chance to play with my teammates. And I don't think people respect that enough from college athletes. I'm watching these bowl games, and I'm seeing a lot of first-round talent playing in the bowl games because they want to be on the college field with their teammates one more time. And I think the Gophers are going to face an Auburn defense that's just a monster, and I think it's going to be a close game, but Auburn wins by 1 score.
Yeah, you kind of wanted to see some of these Auburn players leave early, right? You didn't want to see them come back for the bowl games. But, I think that you're right. I think it's hard to look at the Gophers season and see too many opponents that they've beaten that are Auburn's caliber. I think obviously Wisconsin, having not competed in that game, it wasn't a good sign going into this game. But I think that they understand, that how much could mean for them to get this win and take it into the offseason. And not just for the returning talent, but also, we're talking about recruiting. They had such a great season and they were on, game day, and, the Penn State win was tremendous. But, to have a feather on your cap to beat an SEC team that could be playing for a national championship, that's something that you can continue to use and sell in recruiting. I'm not going to say that I think the Gophers are going to blow out Auburn, but I'm going to go ahead and actually say they're going to win this game. I think that people are going to expect them to come in and, obviously, take over offensively like they did, before the Wisconsin game. And, I think that they have the explosiveness to put pressure on Auburn, similar to some other teams have done this year with their passing game. If they can run the ball a little bit and take a little bit of pressure off of, Tanner Morgan having to stay in that pocket, I think they have a shot. And I like how they started off the Wisconsin game with that big play through the air. I think one of those plays or a couple of those plays in the first quarter, if they can get up by, a couple touchdowns or at least a touchdown, I think they have a chance to win this game. I'm going to go ahead and predict that they'll win. I'm going to say it's going to be similar to your score, but the other way around. And I'm going to predict them to win 27-24. And now, looking back at the 2019, this the whole season, I feel like the highlight obviously was the Penn State win for Gopher football. For you, really quickly, what do you think was the highlight for basketball? And then we'll wrap it up there.
Well, for 2019 overall, it was making the NCAA tournament. When it comes to the highlight this year, that Ohio State victory in Williams Arena is something that has supercharged this basketball team. As far as football goes, obviously the Penn State victory is something that was memorable as well as game day. But I think people, when it comes to the football team, they also have to respect the fact that the Gophers faced 9 opponents that they should have beaten, and they beat them. That's important. Like, that's a major step for this program to take. They beat everybody they were supposed to beat this year. And even when those games against Nebraska and Purdue, and people weren't quite sure how good the Gophers were, those were kind of 50-50 games at the time. But if you look back now, obviously Minnesota should have won those games. Those are games that Minnesota needed to take a step towards in terms of beating consistently, and they did. So to me, that's kind of an underappreciated highlight, the fact that the Minnesota Gopher football team beat everybody they were supposed to and didn't have a slip-up in that way.
Yeah, I think 2020 should be an exciting year for both Gopher football and basketball, men and women, and PJ Fleck to get a win versus Auburn to start off the 2020 would be awesome. But I think just being in the game and competing versus a team like that, I think will go a long way for this program. And, that's it for today. Gopher Insider Podcast, Ryan James, Marcus Fuller. Visit Talk North podcasts at Talk North on Twitter. and we have a good new year. I appreciate it.